Ireland has tripled down. Now, for people who aren't aware, a bus got burnt down in Ireland. That's the whole story. People were very upset about that, so they tried to crush everyone who was upset for some reason and decided to burn down a bus. And that doubling down was kind of gross, where it was the case that anyone who was upset about children being stabbed were the bad ones. But not as bad as people who burnt buses.
It upset their feelings.
That was a weird response.
That had to be mitigated. It's harmful to them.
And I thought it would have calmed down a little bit, but no, they've full on tripled down in the case of trying to shut down anyone who has any criticism of the state. And you can see it here. I mean, Ireland has now become the focus of a lot of global attention, particularly for the Americans, of course. Because for better or worse, I mean, Romantic Ireland is a funny idea and something that I think lives in much of the Anglosphere's mind, because you guys are a good meme, if nothing else. And as you can see, a lot of memes came out of it. Ireland for the Irish in the 1900s, yes, Queen. 2023, Nazi, bigot, racist, fascist.
Of course.
Okay, calm. And it's not the only meme. Even the Babylon being jumping in. Ireland declares asking an immigrant to stop stabbing you a hate crime. Very, very sad day.
What a tongue twister, that one.
Yeah. And then the news came out from, of course, not Ireland, Northern Ireland, so Britain. That's going to cause a schism. But Northern Ireland here, in Belfast.
Oh, yes.
Anti-immigration signage declared a hate incident. A lot of Americans just assumed this was Ireland because, I guess, well.
Imperium Press is the classics department of the future. The Western canon has been under assault for generations. Everywhere you turn, the greatest thinkers of all time are being cancelled, and the new editions of their work spend more time apologizing for them than elucidating them. Since 2018, Imperium Press has been reclaiming the canon from forces that want to erase it. Offering a wide library, Imperium Press places the greatest thinkers of all time where they belong, outside of the liberal worldview. Homer, Sophocles, Shakespeare, and Beowulf stand shoulder to shoulder with political geniuses like Filmer and Maestra, as well as cutting-edge contemporary poetry, political theory, and fiction. Imperium Press is blazing a forward-looking trail to where the towering genius of mankind is again at the center of our cultural life. Browse our catalogue at imperiumpress.org and discover the classics department of the future.
Let's not get into that debate, shall we?
Yeah, that's...
After visiting Northern Ireland recently as well, I mean, I'm no British nationalist, so frankly, meeting the people there, they're probably, if they had a referendum, would join the Republic at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe not after the stabbings and the responses. Don't know, but we'll find out.
No.
But here's the news. As you can see there is a bit of graffiti, a disgusting message. Irish lives matter.
How disgusting.
Yes.
So bigoted.
Call the cops. Yeah, it wasn't the only one that caused this investigation by the British police. There is another sign down here that says, take note, Suffolk will no longer accept the rehousing of illegal immigrants or the excrement of other communities. Now, they've blurred out the word excrement there. I'm not really sure why. It's not a swear word.
No.
Do you not want people to understand what the news is? So I guess not. So come here and I'll find it and then tell you it. But anyway, they say in here the news, which is a sign which has appeared in the Teldag Avenue area, said that the community will no longer accept the rehousing of illegal immigrants. And, well, there's been a couple of responses. First and foremost, to the disgusting messages, as you can see here, of Irish Lives Matter, Sinn Féin have issued a statement.
Oh, the Irish nationalists, supposedly, quote unquote.
Yeah, they've described it as disgraceful.
Ah.
All right.
Okay.
You remember now?
So
you
Brits out, migrants in, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't wrap my head around that.
It's fun, but if you remember the BLM riots, there it was, Black Lives Matter. It was from the progressive side, and All Lives Matter on the other side. Now it's Irish Lives Matter, but this is apparently no good.
No, the Irish have been declared white now.
Now they should say All Lives Matter.
They might try, but instead Sinn Féin have gone with that these messages were erected in an attempt to create fear and intimidate people.
Okay, right.
Thank you, Irish Nationalist Party, for that one.
Yeah.
The people before profit Party, they decided to issue a statement. Weird name, whatever. They say it has no place in our society for this kind of racist poison.
Racist poison.
We're looking at Irish Lives Matter there. Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't want to rehouse the rest of the world. I just would like to have my own community, and Irish Lives Matter. Yeah, that's now denounced by the Nationalist Party. Okay, cool. But that fella from People Against Profit, he did actually issue a longer statement where he published it here.
Oh, wow.
He says that he condemns the thugs who erected and scrawled racist slogans in West Belfast. We are talking about the Irish Lives Matter thing, as you can see there.
Yeah.
He includes that in the racist slogans. This isn't, I condemn one side, but obviously Irish people matter. No, both of them are scum messaging.
Right.
He says, quote, "We are under no illusions that Irish Lives Matter is a racist slogan, which is directly counterposed to movements against the oppression faced black people and other ethnic minorities." I haven't read that wrong. That's how he wrote it.
No,
Broken English.
I
For
just.
some reason.
Ireland has one of the worst hate speech bills,
Yes.
where they are saying that it is not just the dissemination of hateful content, but also the possession of hateful content that can get you in trouble. And this has to do with alienating with your speech, allegedly, some communities with protected characteristics, and it's entirely arbitrary. Apparently, that's interesting because it shows that for the Irish government, the Irish identity is not a protected characteristic. It's not something to protect. And this is the basic thing that states need to do. First of all, their first obligation is to protect their people. And according to this hate speech bill and this government, they're just saying that that's hate. You shouldn't demand that from us. So it's absolute lunacy.
This is entirely true. Just to make one correction. Again, this is in Northern Ireland. So this is the British government here are investigating it. But the conversation did spread south immediately of, is Irish Lives Matter a hateful statement? And the exact response that you're describing is the exact conversation they had, which is the same one.
I'm willing to bet that they said yes.
Yes, they did. It's disgusting phrase.
I've interviewed David Thunder, a political philosopher and researcher who was talking about it, and we were talking about the Irish hate speech bill.
It's important to note as well that we still have the Communications Act of 2003, where possession of grossly offensive, quote unquote, material on your phone, if you send that to anyone, you can be, I think it's, I want to say it's £5,000 fine and up to
a year or two in jail.
Year or two, yeah.
But even offline, we had those posters, you may remember, I think in Bournemouth and a few other places, that said it's okay to be white, and the police did investigate it as a hate crime.
Yeah.
Never found the criminals, the masterminds behind those posters. But it's now spread to Northern Ireland.
Let me just make a point. What you said involves the dissemination of content that is considered to be hateful. Whereas in the Irish state, they have moved one step further.
Yes.
They say it's just the possession.
So if you
have means, you're in trouble.
I do love Count Dankula's response to saying that Irish Lives Matter is a racist slogan. The only person I can imagine being this angry about that phrase is Cromwell. Well, he's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
They try to kill them all. But this moves us to the south. And this is the tripling down effects. Because I thought, okay, they doubled down. That was stupid. This backfired massively. They're going to shut up now.
Yeah.
No one's going to want to talk about the situation. They're just going to say, don't look back in anger. Ignore why Israel doesn't do that. But just shut up. No. Instead, we can see here. This is the former Lord Mayor of Dublin who decided to come out and demands that journalists, it is their job to encourage unity in a moment like this.
Oh.
I'm not kidding either.
When there are children the children that is going through senseless violence, the first port of call is unity, John. The first port of call is to make sure that everyone is safe. No, everyone is safe, and that you are a united front.
So unity means...
No, wait. You said that we didn't interrupt you, so please don't interrupt me. My point is, in a united front and responsible journalism, you send out a message to say what has happened, the facts behind it, and what should happen then. You do not start describing perpetrators and send out a...
Unity of what?
Don't state facts. Call for unity.
Unity of no facts.
Yeah.
Unity of no facts, indeed.
Unity of diversity.
And she's reflective of the entire Irish elite, by the seams, because the story also broke that, as you can see here reported, Elon Musk's ex did not take down, quote, vile messages despite the Irish police requests, the Justice Minister said. Rightio!
Right, okay.
That's interesting. And it wasn't just that they decided to send a bit of a message on WhatsApp. Apparently, they activated, as you can see here, the first member state to trigger an alert under the EU's powerful new legislation on online hate speech. So they basically went to Daddy EU to do this for them.
Yeah.
Because, of course, they want to try and destroy X on the entire European front, not just in Ireland, of course. And, well, the Irish government then decided to have a bitching session. They sat around whining about Elon Musk.
Section 10,978.
Let's listen, I guess.
This
spoke
year.
to a detective in Pear Street on Saturday who was actively engaged with the social media companies throughout Thursday, who was actively engaged with TikTok, actively engaged with Meta, so Instagram and Facebook, who was actively engaged with Twitter or X. She said very clearly that social media companies, in particular TikTok and Meta, they were responding, they were engaging with Garda, and they were taking down these vile posts as they came up. X were not. X were not. They didn't engage. They did not fulfill their own community standards. And that is why we are moving to a situation where these companies do not get to self-monitor. That's why Commission Man has been established to make sure that these companies are held responsible, because while some were responsible, others were not. So let me reassure you, Garda.
Who do you trust more?
Great question.
You trust the Elon Musk and his new regime of Twitter, in which they focus on getting rid of child porn, not meme words, that they are more responsible at being able to get rid of actual criminal speech, or these guys who refuse to show you what post they're talking about?
Well, it's really annoying, because if you remember in the last decades, there has been a shift towards talking about corporate responsibility and what responsibility corporations have, and people, whatever. But it's never about the government.
No.
It's never about the government being upheld in standards. It's always people from the government not protecting their own people, which is their number one obligations. The obligation telling others that they're not, let's say, fulfilling their community standards.
Yeah.
The number one community standard that she and her government have to fulfill is to protect the Irish people. And they're not doing that.
But no, the real threat is to the immigrants who might have to read mean words on the
That's
internet.
true. That's very true. You have to remember as well, I mean, we don't think like these establishment bobbleheads. So in their mind, they're doing good by getting rid of mean words, and no, we must protect this community or that community. So yeah, it's important to remember that they live in another realm, like in another headspace.
I think some of them do, but I think that may be a bit too good an interpretation, too charitable.
Okay.
I think some of them just deliberately don't care.
Well, let's look at the evidence, shall we? Because here's one of them. Here's a professor of European politics over here. He responded with either he should play by our rules or we throw him out. The response being, okay, Stalin, from Americans who are just like, we don't really care if we lose the Irish Twitter market. It's not really a problem. What is a problem is free speech, because they're the only platform of mass media who actually defend it. And it is literally down to one autistic boy. And one autistic boy was recently asked about the censorship and did respond with a pretty good response. So I am going to play it, but here we go.
Apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger
I hope
today.
they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
I mean, I can't argue with that. I have my skepticism with Musk, but I can't argue with that.
I mean, it is a bit cynical, because if they're saying, free speech is a problem, it is. Imagine if we were running a country and people were allowed to speak and criticize us.
Jesus, the things that might happen.
Oh, gosh.
There might be political reform, and the people in charge might try and defend the Irish people. God, we can't let that happen.
Can't let that happen, no.
There was another clip that I saw out of this meeting, which is hilarious because it's so relevant, but I didn't find it in time to put it in. Is Musk being asked about specifically the ADL trying to blackmail him here, as you can see. But it's so much relevant to Ireland, where he just says he's so sick of people who like to be seen as if they're doing good, but really are doing evil.
Yeah.
And it's entirely the case here as well. And speaking of evil, I mean, this guy decided to come out.
Oh yeah, I saw this.
Local
Awful.
politician.
Oh,
So this is Fianna Fáil councillor Azed Telkuter, who says, "I'd like to see them shot in the head or bring the public in and beat them until they die." He's talking here of the people who burnt the bus.
interesting. Not the people who stabbed children.
No.
No.
No. We must wait for the evidence and send them through the legal system. But for people who burn buses who are Irish, they need to be shot in the head or beaten to death by the members of the public. He did withdraw these comments, saying it was pure emotion.
And it's his job to be emotional.
But felt the need to publicly announce that.
Yeah, he had no emotional outbursts about the stabbing of the kids, but he had a real emotional outburst about that bus. He was really connected to that bus.
Now, can you imagine what he might be saying in private?
Yeah, I'd like to check his phone if we could for some hate speech. But this guy as well, just some background. Someone did manage to find he has literally been promoting programs to get illegal aliens to be able to just skirt the system. In this case, he's just providing people with a pathway to citizenship, even though their first interaction with the Irish nation was, I'm not paying for a visa.
Yeah.
Just going to break in.
You know what is a bit funny and ironic? Is that people like that who constantly claim to be the best Spotifyers of hate speech, they just see this and it passes under the radar.
Yeah.
And also it happened also...
Bro literally calls for the death of people, but I'm against hate speech.
In the Canadian Parliament, where they were clapping all a particular person.
We are against hate and truck divers. But anyway, Zika. Okay, Trudeau.
Yeah.
Bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that happened. And I have to ask the question, because from an English perspective, looking at the Irish nation, I mean, they're a little bit separated from the Anglosphere. Because, of course, they're not Anglos, but they do speak English.
Okay.
So it's they're a weird kind of couple of years behind, it seems. And it seems they were infected with the same ideological nonsense that the rest of us have been in our elites. And we can see this because someone did put a lovely section all together here, as you can see, of a bunch of statements from Irish politicians. And it's really quaint. I mean, it's like being in 2016. So let's have a listen. Just to remind ourselves as well, we're talking about the Irish.
While it's true that the Irish have known a fair share of oppression, the reality is during that oppression, we still maintained our invisibility cloak of white privilege.
And we often hear about white privilege, and it hadn't really occurred to me that I had white privilege as well. But now, listening to you, I understand that I do have a privilege.
I think we shouldn't forget that our parliament still looks very male, very stale and pale.
Of course you can say that. You're a middle-class white man. So you view the law completely different to somebody who is a traveller, to somebody who is uneducated, to somebody who's maybe a member of the Roma community. So it is very, very different. You know that the law doesn't treat you the same. Nice. It doesn't treat you the same.
You, as a white privileged man, how does my debt impact your life?
I think it's worth putting on the record of this House that concept of white privilege and how that can be normatised in our own lives. And, you know, we as we develop as a society and a more racially integrated society, I think need to become more and more conscious of that within our own politics and the advantage that has brought, but the corollary being that your whiteness is itself an advantage, and to really understand that.
I often observe young people as they walk together. One of their party or two of their party will be from, you know, their background maybe from a different country, and they are, you know, celebrating that and they're engaged in that much more so than the very dull, white, pasty Ireland that I grew up in.
Brilliant.
So
dull, white, pasty.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think? Alan Partridge, when he's sitting around saying, "There is more to Ireland than this." That's the first thing I thought of.
That's Hamza Yusuf shape-shifting.
Yeah.
Oh my days. I've never seen that before. So that was a raw reaction there.
You can see the dates. They're all from the 2020s. This isn't 2015, 2016, 2012 or something. This is very, very recent conversation.
Yes.
Ireland is Irish. That's 2023 a problem.
That is indeed a 2023.
That's it. That I see that though as extremism. Like I genuinely see that as extremism.
It is.
I mean, if
it's extreme.
That's totalitarianism.
Yeah.
It's not 100%. The kind of behaviors that they are talking about in people who want to protect their country, that's totalitarian.
Yeah, 100%.
That's massive restriction of liberties.
100%.
I mean, I am fully on board with the idea that maybe the British need to help the Irish nationalists in some kind of special military operation to denazify the Irish state, because what the hell are they doing? What the hell are you doing with yourselves? I mean, I'm sorry, it is utterly ridiculous in the rest of the Anglosphere, but to see the Irish doing it is doubly mental, because, of course, of their history of not being the on-top faction, saying the least, but also them sitting there being like, damn, the Easter Rising was so male, pale, and stale. So was the Civil War. So was the IRA. So was everything. I don't know what the point in this is, other than they have imported American speech, and of course being progressive American language, not the right-wing Americans, and just shoved it into their dialectic. And it comes out as just complete garbage, as you can hear from these people talking here, where it's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's like, man, it's so pale, stale, and male in here. You're Irish. For the love of Christ, you're not even white. It's just madness. And this is the tripling down I'm talking about. And that goes on for 3 minutes. We only played a minute and a half.
Me.
But
it's just...
Let's go to the Irish progressives, I suppose, to end this off, because they had some things to say. Since when did Conor McGregor become the voice of the Irish freedom, when he has no issue with wearing the imperialist emblem of remembrance of those who murdered and military occupy Ireland on behalf of a foreign government? Now, I assumed he was wearing a little swastika badge. You want to see what he's wearing?
I know. The poppy, of course.
Remember those who died in World War One?
Sorry,
which includes the Irish.
It's you as well who died there.
Can you scroll up a bit?
Sure. What did you want to read?
That's imperialist emblem of remembrance.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a flower that grew in the ground on top of the dead, which included the Irish.
That's massive skin suiting from the Irish government.
Utterly disgusting. I did love one of the responses in here, which someone said, the moment Conor McGregor came out against the stabbing of Irish children, that's when you people turned on him?
Yeah.
That's more revealing than anything.
That is more revealing.
You know, another issue that they don't talk about crime and drugs in Dublin. All people who just went there and some of them caused trouble and stuff. They don't talk about it as an isolated incident. When it's something that, you know, when some crimes are being committed from one side, it's always an isolated incident. But when something happens,
when a bus burns down,
it's never an isolated incident. On the other side, it's a pattern.
It's a horrific tragedy this country will never recover from. We'll go to an average socialist, as she sells herself. My daughter is the only Irish child in her creche. Okay. Every one of her amazing carers is an immigrant and has shown endless love. And then she's saying her heart's been broken because a message was sent out saying they're closing the creche early so that the staff can go home early. Because...
Right.
What?
Why?
The riots.
Ah.
There's no threat to their life, obviously.
Well, obviously not.
I do love, I mean, one of the responses in here was, if a white person refused to show up to work because they were afraid of black people after a BLM riot, the response would not be concern and understanding. Tell those immigrants that they are racist and fire them without severance pay. I mean, yeah, if they were white, that's what you'd do to them. I love how Kate here does just skip over that point.
Yeah.
My daughter is the only Irish child in her class. We'll just not comment, shall we?
Not worth commenting.
Leave that there.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of other that went on. You can see here, this was one of the radio hosts that denounced the bus burners as the worst, whereas the gentleman, as he calls him, who stabbed children, was a supreme gentleman. Just a fine chap. That didn't go down well. Lady Gaga, there was a concert in which, for some reason, one of the headliners came on and just started S-talking Conor McGregor. And of course, the Lady Gaga audience were booing him. And then this was circulated a lot to show, look, there's no support for Conor. Don't ever support Conor McGregor. Please. He might overthrow the government. It's like, clearly someone's scared.
Clearly.
And then this went on because now the information started to come out about the stabber himself. So this one here, this is the social protection minister being asked about the fact that he was in the country for years, never worked a day in his life when he had citizenship, and was claiming benefits. And he's a foreigner who just turned up and screwed over the system, literally exploited it to get citizenship. And she just has no response. You can watch the full clip if you want. We don't have time. But she ends up just saying that it's a long process getting employment.
Is it 20 years? Did I read? It was something like...
Yeah.
Yeah. It's 20 years. What, a long process. Well,
here he is. This is the Algerian man in question. Because someone was able to find, as you can see, an article, which is him talking about how he came to the country because he wanted to visit a friend and then just stayed illegally.
Right.
And in that time, he worked illegally, so suppressing Irish wages by illegally working as a fruit picker. He then became an alcoholic vagrant, as this media report makes clear, where they go through the history of this guy. So he got addicted to alcohol and then became a vagrant. And then, just for some reason, he decided he was a refugee.
Oh, just decided.
Yes.
Woke up, said it.
So
Right.
he applied for asylum on the basis that he claimed he was in fear because he had been tortured by the Islamic militant group in Algeria. And if he returned, my God, the things they would do. He said he was kidnapped and tortured 4 times by 4 members from 1998 to early 1999. He claimed that the torture had taken place in order to get him to reveal details about a family member who worked for the Algerian government. He then made this application, and they denied it because it's an obvious lie.
Yeah, obvious.
So they decided, well, okay. The suspect was then invited to make applications, quote, in the ordinary way, outlining why, despite this negative recommendation, he should nevertheless be granted leave to remain. He didn't fill in the paperwork. So the government in 2001 issued the deportation order, saying, well, you're not even going to apply. So, bye. And what that means is the police had the right to arrest him and deport him. They did not. Okay. A couple of years later, in May 2003 and in February of 2004, court records show that he then made several unsuccessful applications, but they were made on behalf of the suspect by NGOs. So people who want the country to have people like this in there, people who spend their lives and their money making sure there's more people like this guy. They made several requests. All of them failed. And then they made another challenge in 2006. It was also failed. And then in 2008, the final challenge was made, which was failed. Okay, so then in the later stage of 2008, they made one more challenge, and for some reason, the Irish High Court decided that the government in 2001, that rejected the application in 2001, did not consider the new definition of serious harm that was used in 2008.
Yeah.
Probably because they're not time travelers. And on that basis, he was granted right to remain. And then he became a person who claimed Irish citizenship, never worked another day in his life, and claimed benefits.
Yeah. It's a broken system, really, to say the least.
The worst story
Yeah.
you could possibly think.
Yeah. And now look what he did.
And I'm sorry, if that's the thing that happens in your country, the lessons learned are enforce deportation, enforce who's allowed in and out, and, I don't know, maybe shore up the police, and instead tripling down on the narrative that,
yeah,
you know what the real problem is? The people who burnt the bus. That's the real tragedy. Conor McGregor saying he might run for parliament. That's the real threat to our society.
That's the real boogeyman.
Not something I expected, but there we are. If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Lads Hours, this one on whether or not you could survive a zombie apocalypse. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.